Hello, and welcome to Tip Tuesday. I'm Walter Nollison, the Life Sciences Product Manager for IndySoft. Today's Tuesday will be to share a few innovative uses for the service repair parts inventory module within IndySoft. The inventory module is one of the hidden secrets of the IndySoft software. At Medtronic, where I worked previous to IndySoft, we used the module to manage our parts inventory of over 10,000 part numbers to support 24,000 instruments and an inventory value of $250,000. And it worked for us very well for close to 20 years. Today, we'll give you a quick review of the service repair parts module and then give two innovative ways that you can use the module beyond a typical parts inventory system. So we're going to talk about the background, kind of give you a flavor for how the service repair parts inventory system works, and then guide you through the two innovative methods we utilize at Medtronic to take advantage of the system even beyond its normal usage. So let's start with the background and let you know where can you find the service repair parts module. And if you go to the Add Edit menu item at the top of your screen and about the center of the software interface, and you click on it, come down to Parts, and then select Service Repair Parts and click on it. Now you'll see the main screen, and I'm just going to move it up here so you can see it just a little bit better, and maybe resize it a little bit so it takes a little bit more of the main screen here. And this is the main screen that will come up if you click on it, and it will show you your complete inventory on the screen. Now, here, I don't have a lot of parts in the inventory system, so that's why it's showing up all on here. But if you had a whole bunch of them, let's say like you were at Medtronic and we had 10,000, then you'd use these binoculars to find specifically the part that you're looking for, or to narrow it down. But in this case, it's a small number and you can see them all. Let's select one of the part numbers and we can show you what is more detailed information behind this row of information. So let's take one part here, the battery, and I'm going to double click on it so we can see the detailed information behind this one part out of many. So I've double clicked on it, and there's 6 steps or 6 screens to this module, and the first one is the most detailed and has the most fields, and this is where you put the particular information about your part. Now you don't have to utilize all the fields. Utilize whichever ones you need to minimally identify the part you're going to put into and add it to the inventory. This case here, we have part number, we have part name. You'll probably use a description. I think the drawing date comes in here as a default when you add it into the inventory. Another useful area is here at the bottom. You want to add your quantities, so your max quantity that you're going to have. The nice thing about the service repair parts module is it acts like an inventory system in that you can have reorder points, and you have maximum and low limits, carrying costs, unit costs, charge-out costs, current quantity, total cost, couple fields here, check boxes of taxable or ignore, but a nice first step in giving you information on how to manage the part. Go to the next step. This is where you could add notes about the part that you think will be of interest to anyone else. The third step is to add information for vendor parts. Now, the interesting thing that we've got set up here, and it's shows the nice flexibility of the service repair parts module, is that you can both have an internal company name that you give the part, And then you can have many suppliers with their own part numbers that are equivalent to the main part that you're going to add into your inventory. So it's kind of like a one-to-many. And that's a nice, flexible way to have in your service repair parts as well. It's a good design. And that's what this screen is showing you, is that you can add your multiple suppliers that are providing their equivalent part to what your main one is that you're carrying. The next step is to an associated equipment step. You can add an associated equipment. In other words, if you have parts that are dedicated to just a handful of instruments or one out of the 24,000s or thousands that you're managing, then this is a good place to make that association. Think of like sterilizers, where you have sensors or filters. Then you can designate the sensor or filter to specific sterilizers in your inventory. And then that helps later on in association with events, which we're going to show you. Step 5 is another good place. This is where you will do your inventory change events after you've added the initial item into the database. Then you, every time you make a change to that element of information, you will then be instructed to add some information about it. Think of this as a change control log, audit trail sort of thing. And then step 6 is part assignments, and this allows further customizing, classifying your parts to a group type. If you wanted to, let's say you had laser bulbs, then you could assign it to your laser systems as a group part. Oil filters to filters group, fuses to fuse group. I mean, so it's an endless manner. Think of this screen as mainly a classification screen. And so that is the 6 components of a parts inventory when you add it or is in your system. So that is one aspect, background of the service repair parts module. The second part about this is once you have a part in the inventory and it's in there, now how do you use it? How does a technician able to go physically to your inventory, pull a part, and then is instructed or taught workflow-wise and SOP-wise how to now associate that pool of inventory physically to an electronic documentation that helps with inventory control, helps with reporting, it helps with reordering. All those aspects of actually making this work more automated is the second part of the background of this. And so now once you have a part in the system, how do you charge it out? And you do that through an association of an event. And so I'm just going to pull up an event here, calibration, and you can have it arranged to where this can be done through almost any type of event. The particular aspect that you need to do through workflow configuration is that for each event that you want to allow capability of a user to do inventory charge out is to go to workflow configuration over here, your system administrator, or whoever designs your workflows, or perhaps IndySoft itself. And then within the event, you'll add a new tab within the event screens called Service Repair Parts. And so now once it's visible, this event is going to allow you to take or charge out from the parts inventory system whatever it is that you need or have taken. So I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration of how that works. So I clicked on the Service Repair Parts tab within the calibration event for a certain asset. I'm going to use the left-hand icon here called Add a Repair Part. I'm going to click on it. And what that's going to do is allow an interface for you to search your parts inventory, imagine thousands of part numbers, and for you to search on it by putting in the part number information of what you know it to be. In this case here, I've got a small inventory, so it's easy for me to find what I want. and I know that I'm going to use a battery, replace the battery in, let's say, this handheld digital multimeter. As a technician, I'm running the calibration event, find out that the battery is dead. I go to the parts inventory. I could search for the parts inventory, find what part, find out where it's located in the bins, pull it, and then electronically document that. Here, I double-clicked on that battery in the inventory. It comes up with information, parts information, which allow me to tell here how many parts of that item how many quantities did I take. In this case, I'm going to leave it at 1. That's the default. But imagine if you had filters. You had 3 PM filters that you're doing for a system. Then you could move this up to 3, and you have pulled 3 filters from the database. In this case, I pulled 1 battery. There's some individual costs associated with it. I'm not going to change any of that at all. Well, if I change it to 2, it will change that information automatically. You don't have to worry about it. I'm going to change it back to 1. You can put a part note in here, descriptive nature, if it's something unusual, and then you can hit OK. Once you hit OK, it will show up in the service repair part screen that's now part of the calibration event for this asset. And if I go to the next screen, I can finish doing the calibrations, but now I have electronically charged out from inventory the part that I'm actually physically using. And it will automatically increment the quantity or decrement the quantity from the parts inventory system. And if I get to a reorder point that I've designated for that part, then a note from IndySoft will go to the parts administrator to let them know that there's a part they should reorder. Nice automatic system. Works very, very well. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this event. So now, in essence, I've given you the background or the service repair parts module, showing you how you can add a part, how you can see a part that's already in there. And then the next linkage is actually charging out the usage of those parts through an event of some kind, be it calibration, repair, PM, project, miscellaneous events, whichever event you want to set up through your workflow to make this transaction happen. Okay, I hope you followed me there. Now, let's talk about the first innovative use, and I'm going to give you 2. The part inventory module is defaulted to set up to use parts that are against instruments. Now I'm going to show you how flexible you can utilize the service repair parts module to do something beyond actual parts. Think of non-part situations, and I'm going to give you 2. One is going to be the idea of chargebacking special labor to equipment. You can work with your finance groups if you want to be a charge out of your services to your internal customers within the company. We did that with Medtronic. We worked with the finance department to say we should be somewhat of a chargeback cost center, and we actually were 100% chargeback. Not everyone is that way. There's many ways you can set that up. But we arranged with finance that we would be a charge out for our services. And in those situations where we wanted to have some special labor charge out conditions, we set up this process, and I'm going to show you. We'll go back to parts, go back to service repair parts. In this case, what we set up was 3 ways to charge back special labor to our customers against certain types of equipment. I've already added these to the system in preparation for this training. I called them overtime chargeback, rush request chargeback, and tech assist chargeback. 3 separate types of labor chargeback for different situations. And you can see here that there's different costs associated with those. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And you can set up different quantity levels and such to make it easier to actually utilize. So let me just open up the overtime we got set up to be $100 an hour. And so if a customer asks for, let's say, our technicians to come in on a Saturday to do clean room, HEPA filter, change out, then this would be a way that our technicians could charge back the time they're doing on Saturday to that customer's clean room, and so we would transfer that labor cost. Rush request. This will be an aspect where the customer is asking for, instead of a typical 3-day, 5-day, 2-week turnaround, depending on type of work, they need a rush. In other words, they need head-of-the-line privileges. And so we have worked with finance that those customers need to pay a premium for that service. And in this case here, it's going to be $150 an hour sort of thing. And then the next category that we've innovatively used is the tech assist. If we are asked to help with a qualification of a line or a validation of a line that isn't a typical thing that we do, but we're being asked to assist, then this would be a manner to charge back our labor to that system. So we got these three things in the inventory now. Even though they're not actual parts, they're a way that we can charge back service in a sense. And so I'm going to close that out. I'm going to open up event now. Let's say I've done a calibration event, and my technician was asked to do this on a Saturday for overtime. So now the technician could choose the parts inventory, type in overtime, and then overtime would show up. Double click on the overtime. I've done 4 hours of overtime that day. Increment to 4, quantities of 4. That's the unit rate per hour. Add my note on here. We got a default note that we've added. Used for finance chargeback process for customer overtime request. Nice. Hit OK. And now we have it in here. 4 hours, which equates to $400, is now in this event to be completed after the rest of the documentation takes place. So very slick. Very nice way to do that. That's one innovative manner to do. When you want to do a service that's not an actual part, a non-part chargeback. Pretty slick. The next example I'm going to show you is we're going to do a chargeback instead of to an actual piece of equipment. We're going to show you an example how you can do chargebacks not to an instrument but to a department. For example, training. We had an annual training that we brought into the company that we bought as an online training tool for calibration customers across Medtronic around the world. We would purchase the main purchase order, and then we would distribute those costs to the rest of our peers around the world. And so we use the parts inventory system to do that. And I'm going to show you. So we're going to add edit. We're going to go down to parts, service repair parts. And I added a training chargeback part into the inventory. And so in this case here, it's a training item, training chargeback. In this particular case, I know that the PO was a certain number, let's say $12,000. I knew how many technicians were going to use that around my peers. And then I instructed them that by dividing up equally the number of people who's going to use the PO, it was $125 an hour, or not $125 an hour, $125 per technician cost. And so then we have it in the system that way, 125. I've added a note in case somebody needs to come across that may not understand what this particular training part is. And in this case, it's used for finance chargeback for annual online training courses. And the next thing I do is the inventory change control, and it'll show you here. I did this a couple of days ago. I'm going to cancel out. So now I have training in there to be utilized for a chargeback process. And I'm going to go to events now. Now so that first part of it is very similar to the other innovative method I showed you. Where it differs is in which type of event mechanism. Because remember, we're not going against an instrument now, we're going against a department. And so the way we have it set up is we designed a miscellaneous event so it wouldn't be confused with an actual activity like calibration or repair or PM that auditors would be interested in or use for other manners. We wanted to separate ourselves away from that mechanism. So we created a miscellaneous event. And so this miscellaneous event also has the Service Repair Parts tab, viewable through Workflow Configuration Design. And so now we have got the other second unique thing about this is instead of being able to do it against an asset number, what we do for each department we have in a database, we created a miscellaneous department instrument for that department. And we called it, in this case, MISC, MISC, and then whatever the department name is, in this case, AP1. So this is just a miscellaneous item that's in the department inventory that doesn't have a schedule against it. It is there just for the purposes of being utilized for miscellaneous purposes. In this case here, for us to do a special chargeback of service to a department, not to a particular instrument. So we don't confuse the two. And so we go to Add Edit. I'd put in here training name, whatever it was I utilized. I noticed down here, so I'm going to double click on that. In this case, the department I'm charging to, they have 10 technicians that I know have signed up. So I'm going to charge them 10 units of training, annual training access for their department for the 22 online training courses. Got a note here, add it. And so this department MISC, so department AP1, is going to get an annual chargeback of $1,250 for their 10 technicians to have training for the whole year. They're paying their equal amount of the total PO. And then we would sign it off. The third component of this is, for both aspects, is you work with your system administrator to create a report, end of month report is usually the way you do it, that the end of month report will search the database for all events that were done in those 30 days that had a service repair parts charge against it and put it in a summary report collated by department, and then send it to the finance department representative, and they would trigger the actual financial transaction to charge out your dollars from your department to your customers. And that's how those two methods work. Pretty slick. So in summary, the Service Repair Parts module is an excellent tool to manage your equipment parts. We found it to be very robust, easy to do, and we had a lot of dollars associated with it. But it is also flexible enough to be used to manage non-equipment related parts. And so that's where the innovation really comes into play. The sky is the limit to how you might use this powerful tool. So thank you for attending our Tip Tuesday. Goodbye.